What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Writers Realm podcast, and thanks for joining us on the epic adventure we call writing. We're your hosts,
Holly Rebillard.
Austin Matthews.
and Bob Adato. And today we're going to be talking about elevator pitches with Jake Lynch, who's the author of Broken to Beautiful, a wonderful book that's on Amazon right now. Welcome, Jake.
Thank you for having me. Super glad to be here.
Super glad to be here. Yeah, thank you for being on our show. Well, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a young self-published author right now. I'm living down in South Orange County, and like whenever I'm not writing, I'm usually out surfing or doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu. That stuff's always a ton of fun, or just basically labeling all my hobbies right now. I like watching anime on the side too. That's always fun, and of course reading because I'm an author. I got to improve the craft.
Okay.
And hanging out with friends. So there you go. I just gave you my whole lifestyle.
Nice. Perfect.
Yeah.
And then,
Well, to dig a little deeper, I'm going to go ahead and ask, do
Go for
you
it.
read the same things that you write, or do you read something that's like completely different? I'm always curious.
I always like to read things that are different just because I like seeing how people's mindsets and writing styles are different than mine. I'm like, oh, they describe the same like thing, object,
Mhm.
person, whatever, but in a different way that I never imagined.
Hmm.
So that's why I always like reading something different. So I like to branch out like that.
Smart.
I noticed I was having a conversation with a friend this weekend, and we were talking about how a lot of authors we've noticed have a catchphrase. And if you read
Really?
multiple of their works, like whether it's in the same world or different worlds or different series, there tends to be one thing or one certain word or description that they'll use over and over and over in their series.
Hmm.
So now that we're talking about you reading different things, you have to keep that in mind and report back and let me know if you notice that across other series, because
Hmm.
I usually just stick to my dragons and fantasy world. So people outside of this might function properly and not repeat things over and over.
No, that's totally fine. I love
Yeah,
dragons.
it's one of those things. The first thing that I thought of whenever you said that was Lord of the Rings, and it's like they always talk about like tightening up their belts. The second thing I thought of was Matt Mercer, and every time there's a monster, he uses the phrase "toothy maw," like without fail.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, oh yeah, like it is a weird kind of a thing. It gives you a general feeling, and like, yeah, I could see I probably have my crutches that I go to
Mhm.
too without realizing it.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The longer I write, the more I'm like anxious about like, am I repeating the same phrase over and over again? Like, can the reader see the same words that I'm using? Like, can you understand my language? I'm just always on the lookout for that, and it makes me nervous.
Yeah, as much as Holly gives me a hard time about it, I love autocrit for that exact reason. Because it'd be like, hey, you use this one phrase a whole lot in your book, and you might want to reconsider.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's wonderful.
Hey, so what's Broken to Beautiful about?
Yeah, so Broken to Beautiful is like it's about a girl in high school who struggles with like tough topics like she has like suicidal thoughts and she deals with depression. She's a shy social loner, so she doesn't know how to interact with people. And so she like in her experiences, she ends up finding God. And so it's a religious type novel. So she finds God and she learns like, okay, God loved me, so I need to try and love on others. So she starts to look out and help for people who are hurting around her. And as she starts doing that, she starts to grow in character and gain more confidence and start to experience life for the first time and finding that life is not all pain and depression. It's full of joys. So that's a quick synopsis of what the story is about. So if you like gut-wrenching emotional dramas, then come on down.
I think that's really fascinating, actually. And a lot of what you said is so important for character arc, because it's not even just that it's super emotional, but it's a whole journey, right? And it's a
Yeah.
personal journey, and it's something that people can relate to.
Yeah.
And that's so important to remember with our characters, is that people want to be able to relate to them. And sometimes, in fantasy and the other things like that, that can be hard to do sometimes. But
Yeah.
you're right, having like a real person or a real character that you can relate to, that has gone through the same struggles as you and who has, made it through to the other side. That's so important. And that's amazing to have the ability to write like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of the that was like the driving factor for how I like made this book. I'm like, I want all the characters to be extremely relevant and relatable to like anyone who's reading it. So I made a bunch of characters with a bunch of different problems, and it's so relatable. It's almost too real sometimes. You're like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that like fantasy and those kind of, and maybe even sci-fi too, tend to struggle with, is like you can get very stuck in the like archetypal characters, or like, oh, this character isn't really a person, it's a role. And so it doesn't feel real, and it's like, okay, well, you know, sure, the protagonist is suffering, but it's like, whatever, he's the hero, it's fine, he's supposed
Yeah.
to suffer. And so you kind of lose the like the depth of that you get in a lot of dramas.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to make your characters human in a sense so people follow along more. Because when you do that, people are like, oh, I got to find out because I like this guy or girl, whatever.
Right. Now, what inspired you to write this book?
So I kind of have a unique origin story for why I like started writing this book, and it's odd. So like I grew up and like I was a video game kid, and I played sports and stuff, but I had no aspirations for writing at all until I got the impression to write this book. So I was not a big reader at the time too. Like sure, I read some books, but wasn't too into it. And so I was in college at the time, finishing up my first semester in my sophomore year. And I got this impression on my mind near the end of the semester to write a story about a janitor. And so I'm like, okay, this is an odd thing because one, I've never written a book before. And then two, English was, I'm sorry, but it was one of my least favorite classes in high school. I apologize to all my English teachers, but sorry, it's the truth. And so this impression lingered on my mind for quite a while. So it was like I didn't feel forced in it. Like it wasn't like anxiety driven or anything. So I'm like, okay, this idea is not going away. I should sit down and pray about this. So like, and also for more backstory, I grew up a non-denominational Christian in South Orange County. So I went to Saddleback Church. So and so I took some time to pray about this. I'm like, okay, God, do you want me to write a book? And so I sit down and pray about it in silence. And then I flip open to where I was reading in my Bible. And for more context on that, is that in my Bible, I read the Bible chronologically. And so a month or two prior to that, I got another impression to start reading the book of Isaiah specifically, like just start reading that one. And I was in the New Testament, so it's like total like 180 flip. And so I'm like, okay, so I start reading Isaiah, and then fast forward to when I get the impression to write the actual book, I flip open to where I was reading precisely in Isaiah. And the first thing that I read was write these words down, write it in a book. And I'm like,
Wow.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, you can't get more clear than that, God. Like, okay,
Right,
so God wants me to write a book. And so the next day I opened a Word document and started writing. And here we are 5-6 years later.
Wow. That's incredible.
I know.
Well, good.
It's total 180. That's like one of the pivotal moments of my life because I had zero aspirations for being an author.
Right.
Like, I know you get other guests who are like, oh, I wanted to write since I was like, in third grade. I'm like, I'm not like that. I was not like that at all.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of an interesting origin story.
It is. Well, what's next on the horizon? What do you have? Do you like this genre that you're writing in, or would you like to expand it into something else?
Yeah, so I have plans to kind of genre hop a couple times in the future. Like this book, Broken to Beautiful, it's a contemporary fiction. So it's a slice of life drama. There's no super fantasy or romance or anything. I am currently working on the start of my first series, actually. And the next book is called The Lost Saint, basically. And it's a story about a post-nuclear world following a very religious man and how he tries to be moral in a world where there's like no rules, no laws and everything. So that's kind of the start of a long series that I plan to build upon as I'm in that. But I do intend to go back to contemporary stories and write more of those. And then I do one day want to take a crack at fantasy. Holly, I know you'll be looking out for that one because well, I like reading fantasy too. Okay, so I do want to take a crack at it, and maybe I'll take a crack at sci-fi too. So I plan to genre hop. It's going to take me a while to get there because I got a lot of ideas that I want to get out on paper first.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing too is you can always blend them and like, I mean, use that kind of slice of life
Yeah.
in a sci-fi. And it's like, it's not something like, I mean, sci-fi that happens a lot, but you don't really get too much of that in the fantasy world other than maybe some cozy fantasy, getting into like the day-to-day kind of a thing of like, what is it like to actually live in this world as opposed to be the hero?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. I love just exploring worlds and like going into detail. And like when you can immerse yourself in something, it's so much more enjoyable. So I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
That's why I love fantasy so much. I'm very much an old soul. I feel like if I had been alive like 500 years ago, like living in a hovel somewhere, I would have been just so happy. I would have been totally okay with that. Very pleased. And so that's why I love fantasy so much. It's because a lot of it, aside from like the contemporary fantasy, but a lot of that fantasy takes place in this kind of like medieval style times and more like Renaissance era. And I just love that. It just makes me feel so like giddy and happy. And
Well, it's interesting because it's like the other fantasies that I'm working on, like one is like takes place on a spaceship, and then another one takes place in the Industrial Revolution in like
wow.
a fantasy world. And so it's like it can be anything you want, which is a fun thing too. It's like you don't have to bend to anything or any world that exists. Like you can do whatever you want, and it's, you know, I mean, as long as it's respectful to the people that exist in the real world, you can do it. And so
that's the nice thing about writing is that people, or like for readers, they don't really know what kind of world they'd really enjoy until they read about it, right? You know, we had to read about dragons to know that we all wanted to have one.
Right.
So, you know, whatever you create is, you never know, that could just be something that the next person is like, wow, that is just my ideal world or my ideal situation. And that's why we read.
Yep.
That's why we read. You're getting me excited, Holly.
Yeah.
But I will say, nobody will read my fantasy worlds and go, that's a place I want to live.
No. Not right now. No.
Not right now, Bob. No.
Yeah. Well, Jake,
They're not cheerful places.
Yeah, Jake, you look like you're like fresh out of high school. I hope that's not. But,
is it the lighting? It's probably the lighting.
No, I mean, just like you have so much time to write all these wonderful books. So
yeah,
that's
really we're all old here.
Oh, yeah, we're all old. We're ready.
Well, like for background, I am 24 years old. I'm gonna be 25 in August, so I'm getting there. I've been writing for like 6-ish years, 5-6 years now.
Man.
So
that's amazing.
But you know, you start off doing like 1 hour, 2 hour increments a day, and then you know, now like I'm trying to go full time into this, so I quit my job and I'm trying to just make it work, do it, you know, work the 8-hour, 7-hour work day, and I'm going for it, and we'll see what happens. But I love it, and it's a lot more enjoyable than the jobs that I've worked outside of college. So yes, I am outside of college. Thank you, Bob.
Well, my daughter finished at 26, getting her master's. So, but
nice.
But anyway, all right. So we're here for
officially the oldest among us.
Yeah, I'm 35. So, but anyways, I'm not.
He's just salty.
I'm 50.
You look great.
Very salty. Thank you. Yeah. So we're here to talk about elevator pitches. So Jake, you kind of just gave us a little bit of what an elevator pitch. But before we got started on the official podcast, we were talking, and Holly brought up a fun situation where she was adding something to her TikTok. So what was that all about, Holly?
Yeah, so I started doing these fun segments, and they're called Dumb Things That Writers Do. And basically, this one was on the fact that when we spend all this time creating our books, right? We write, and then we edit, and we write some more, and we brainstorm all these characters and their backstory, and we put so much time and effort and love into these books. And we live and we breathe these characters for months, even years sometimes. And then the second someone is like, oh, you're writing a book, that's so cool, what's it about? We are immediately like, our brain shuts off, and we're like, it's it's a book. And
it's got stuff in
it. There's magic. There's magic in it too. And there's a quest or thing that they do, and it's just like immediately gone. all of that time that you spent, like, I could like give you a million quotes off the top of my head from my book, but the second someone asks me what it's about, it's all gone. And so that's what I was talking about and trying to, I wanted to get some feedback from other people. Like, what's your experience like? Is it just me? Am I the only one who just, loses my marbles the second that someone asks me what my book's about? And almost every single person was like, yeah, I've been there.
Mhm.
And everyone had different reasons why they think that it happens to them, but every single person was like, I feel this makes sense to me. So yeah, I thought it's a fascinating topic, and
Yep.
we can talk about, who it happens to, why we think it happens, and
Yep.
what we can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because you write your book and then you need a blurb. If you're going to put this on Amazon or Apple or wherever you're going to put it, like people need to know, well, what's the book about? Like to kind of exactly what Holly said. And you could put, a paragraph, but that blurb, am I right? That takes a while to
Yep.
get it right, because
Yeah.
you're just thinking like, what the heck?
And on top of that, if somebody asks you what the book is about and you just recite your blurb, that is not what they are looking
Right.
for.
Yeah.
So if they're looking to buy a book, the blurb is helpful. But if somebody's just asking you what your book is about, or you're trying to really quickly pitch it to somebody to like pique their interest, you got to be like real quick, like 1 to 3 sentences at most.
Yeah. And like I was explaining earlier too, I just came back from a horror convention, and that's literally all you
Fun.
have, because people just walk by your table and they go, they don't even ask. You have to be a salesman there. Like very few would like, oh, what's your book about? They're just like, hey, how you doing? And I go, hey, you like books about this? And so you really have to like we're talking about today, like Austin mentioned, like it's just a quick, like you need to grab their attention and pull them in and hook them, right? You're fishing.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say that like one of my favorite things to do is to just do the really quick shortcut of like, I was talking earlier about having a a dark magical school. Well, like the way I would pitch that, instead of like going through and explaining what it's about, it's like, well, like, hey, how would you feel about like Hogwarts run by eldritch gods? Like, okay, like gets enough of the point across.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know how I would feel about that, but I would love to find out.
Yeah.
That sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
I want to read that.
See,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, boom, just like that, you got a sale. So,
but like that's the thing is, I like the like really short and simple. It doesn't really tell you anything about like the plot, but it gives you a good taste of the genre. So like one of my go-to examples is like I'm working on something that like really isn't this, but I call it Grimdark Pokemon, because like, you know what, you get enough of the taste of what it's going to be that you're like, I don't know what that looks like, but I would be curious to find out. And it's like, if you're not, then that's fine. It's definitely not for you. So
yeah. But now you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you've written your blurb on Broken and Beautiful, of course, Jake.
Yeah.
It's published, it's up. But yeah, like let's just go. We're gonna have to put you on the spot. I'm so sorry, but
okay, fine, it's fine.
but yeah, just pretend you're in the elevator with someone from Simon & Schuster or Penguin, and you're like, oh wow, that's Bob Dowd, the famous publisher. So let's so how would you do this? What's your book about? Like, oh yeah, you're Jake, I heard about you. What's your book about?
First, I'd start off with an icebreaker. It could be just about anything. Like, I like your shoes.
Thank you.
And
yeah.
Like, I like your shirt. I'm always a big fan of plain gray t-shirts.
Yeah.
And then I'll start the conversation off there, and then just say like, like get them talking. Like, oh no, I'm like, hopefully they'll ask me what I do for a living. I'm like, oh, I'm an author, and like, oh, what's your book about? And then I'll usually give them a brief synopsis, and just like I'll focus on a topic of like, oh, like it's a slice of life story like, about how a girl deals with like overcomes like grief, like depression and hard topics in school. And I like to use the relational factor between people, and
Smart.
like that's how I build my books. Basically, I follow a theme that's very relational to the readers and capitalize on that. And so I'll just kind of get talking about that a little bit. Like, sure, I can give them the usual blurb about it if they ask me about it, and I'll do that. But I'll try and stay calm and casual while I'm doing it. And if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go home and cry.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a good point we should make. Of what, not necessarily what your book is about, but maybe kind of anchor it towards with what you're trying to sell, which is
Yeah,
relational. What yours was relational,
yeah,
right? And I guess maybe some of ours is escapism.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
mine is mine. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I want to hear what you have to say first.
No, no, mine was no, mine's is because what I like to read, I just like to read quick escapes, like something I could get done in a weekend. Those are fun for me, very fast paced, and so I have not read Wheel of Time, but yeah, just like there's no. I picked up one book and I go, oh, how many books is this? Oh, holy mackerel! I put it back.
I will say Wheel of Time is a particular beast, and I always hear that if you can just make it through the first one, you're good for another 6 books. But I just made it through the first one. I'm like, I've got to take a break before I hit.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I like to base my books off of like purpose. Like there's a purpose to every single story that I write, and obviously I'm working on trying to improve that craft of trying to write a story that's both entertaining yet has a message in it.
Okay.
My first book, Broken to Beautiful, that one is like has a very strong message involved in it, and you can see it. So it's like it was very realistic. I intended it to be realistic. So it's like, oh yeah, you want to forget about reality? I'm like, okay, this one's kind of more like jumping into another reality of another person and living through that. You're like, okay, I'm not sure I want to do that for a calm, casual read. But the fun part about that is I warn all the readers about that in the very beginning. Like, there's a warning page like, hey, like if you're looking for a calm, casual read, this is probably not for you.
Okay. Yeah.
But I started, but that's me. I like to take on the tough topics and talk about them and see where it goes. And if I can get a person to cry by the end of the story, then I've done my job right.
Right on.
That's fair. And it's got its own kind of catharsis to it as well. So it's like there's, something to be said about escapism, but then also being able to like work through your problems through somebody else's story is also, a good release as well.
That's an excellent way to put that. Thank you, Wes.
I think it's so important as well, especially thinking about when you're giving that elevator pitch, is that your story is not going to be for everybody, and that's totally okay, because there's going to be so many people who do love it. So if you're giving the pitch to someone and they're like, not, they don't really look impressed, then just make sure that you're reminding yourself that it's okay. It's totally okay if they don't love your pitch, because somebody is going to. And those are the people that, that really matter. And those are the people who can really relate and will really get the most out of your book. So, don't
and I think that's a really good way to look at it, is like, you're not trying to sell a book, you're trying to find an audience. Like, if you can find somebody who is actually interested in what you are doing, then you're going to get, a sale on this book, and then, the next 10, hopefully, as opposed to like, I could, say what everybody's going to like, and they'll buy this one book, but then they're like never going to buy another book because they're like, this wasn't what I was looking for. This is not what I was sold. So no, thank you.
And like a lot of the responses I got to were, I'm just nervous that people aren't going to like it. They're like, I know that they'll love the book, but I'm just nervous if I tell them what it's about, then they won't read it, but I know they would love it if they did read it. Or that there's just so many good things that they don't know what to talk about. Or that they're worried they're going to give away a big spoiler, so they're just afraid to say anything at all. So all totally valid and great reasons. And I thought it was really fun, actually, because someone challenged me and he's like, well, if you put out the problem, what's your solution to this? And it's actually, so I came back, I did another video and just said something we had actually talked about in our podcast that I think, Austin, you gave me the idea for this exercise. And basically what I suggested was you take 3 empty bowls and some scraps of paper. And for the first bowl, you're going to write a bunch of names. And then for the second bowl, you're going to write a bunch of just like random objects. And then the third bowl, you're going to write a bunch of like goals or just like quests or whatever, something. And what you're going to do is you're going to go through and you're going to pick out one thing from each. So you end up with a name, an object, and a goal or whatever.
Mhm.
And then you give yourself 60 seconds to think about those three things and then come up with a pitch.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And, it takes the pressure off you because it's not really about your book. So you're not overthinking it, but it gets you in the habit and it retrains your mind to be able to think quicker and to think on the spot. And so that way, when someone does ask you about your book, you're
Yeah.
not immediately starting to panic, that, your brain can kind of process it a little bit. And you're like, actually, my book's about this.
Yeah.
And so it's also really fun. And it's like,
Mhm.
you can do it with
It's creative.
anybody. It doesn't even have to be with other authors. You can do it with friends and it's just as entertaining.
And I mean, not just that, but like, so like that would be like a log line where it's like, hey, Frodo goes on a quest to destroy the One Ring and defeat Sauron. Like,
Mhm.
but that's not just useful for pitching. That's also just useful for your writing. It's like, okay, well,
Mhm.
is this chapter or is this specific scene actually lending itself to that purpose? Or am I getting a little too far off into left field?
Mhm.
So like it keeps you focused when you're writing, but then also like, I mean, that's part of what you were talking about. Is like there's so many good things going on in your story that it's hard to talk about in, a quick pitch. Well, maybe there
Yeah.
is too much going on in your story.
Yeah.
And so like those are also things to think about. Like if your story is rambling too much, like we can get away with it a little bit more in epic fantasy because
Mhm. Yeah.
it's the expectation that it's going to be like 100,000 words or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but when you're doing something that's a lot more tight, so if you're doing like a really quick whodunit or a drama, you don't get as much leeway to spend
Mhm.
20 pages with Tom Bombadil. So,
I think as well,
Yeah.
it comes down to like, you have to think, if you decide that you want to pursue traditional publishing and you're reaching out to agents, they also don't want to read an entire page of what your story's about. They're going to look at those first few lines and they're already going to be making a decision as to whether or not they're, going to be requesting more pages or what they're going to do from there. So you really want to have that narrowed down. I mean, for me, that's something that I have not yet been able to do. I've gotten a synopsis or my little book blurb, and I'm not close to having a pitch. I know that.
Mhm.
If I was put in front of a publisher tomorrow, I would like flounder terribly
Mhm.
because I know I just haven't really honed in on that yet.
Yeah.
I know what I need to do to get there, but I
Yeah.
just haven't done it yet.
But to be fair, Holly, you're not done with the book. I mean, and we're still kind of going through alpha beta readings with it. I mean,
Hmm.
but it will though, right? I mean,
Mhm.
the more, what I mean, like once we're looking at the complete, let's say sculpture, let's just pretend, I don't know. No, that's a horrible analogy. Forget sculpting. Forget sculpting. But once we're done with a complete book, then it's a lot easier to draw it out. Like we're kind of talking about really making things simple. Really, yeah, I
Mhm.
love that there's a character. Now, in most of our books, there's more than one character, but usually
Yeah.
there's like one single big thing that they're trying to get. Like Jake's, you have a character, right?
Mhm.
And she's trying to overcome all these obstacles to find
Yeah.
freedom, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's something like that, but
Yeah, like just trying to make friends.
yeah, something simple like that. But
Mhm.
but that's super relatable. I mean, even that is like, wow, I'm still trying to find friends. But that's super. Yeah, like we want to like make it just so simple that anybody could understand it at any age. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I get that.
I think you're right as well in terms of like for me personally, I've noticed that as I'm going through now and doing a lot of my edits and kind of doing my last round of editing, well, second last round of editing, and I'm starting to see like I have two main characters really, and they both have pretty good character arcs. And as I'm going through and editing, the one like really main character, hers is very strong. And so because that's so strong, and I've gone through and read the whole book now from start to finish, without stopping and without trying to change anything, I can see like I know what her one line would be.
Hmm.
And it's very clear cut, and I know exactly what her purpose is in this story. And so I'm still tweaking on the second character because once I have the two of them, then I know it'll finally click. But
Mhm.
you're right, you really can't be worrying about these things. I mean, keep it in your mind that you want to know what your story's about, but if you're still halfway through your book and you're not really sure how to pitch it, then that's totally okay as well. You don't panic
Mhm.
about it. There's plenty of other things that you're going to want to panic about first.
Well, it
I
also
love how
feels
you.
like oh, go ahead.
No, you go, Austin.
I was just gonna say that it definitely feels like the struggle of a pantser to be like, I don't really know what my book's about yet.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I always love, like, for me, it's like I don't always know. Like, it's easier to describe your story when it's done, your book
Yeah.
when it's
Mhm.
made, versus when you're making it sometimes. Like,
Mhm.
I personally I'm actually a hybrid of a pantser and a plotter, or
Me
like,
too. Yay.
and it
Yay,
took me.
Plancers.
Planters.
I know, right? It took me a long time to figure that out, by the way. And so, like, I had to like learn to structure my stories. I'm like, okay, there are some like main points that I get to, but in the interim, I have no idea how I'm going to get from A to B or whatever. And
Mhm.
so, when I'm like trying to figure out like what is my story about, yeah, where is it going again? I don't really know. So I'm just gonna free write and see where it takes me sometimes. And it can be frustrating in the long haul, but eventually you have to just put your foot down and be like, no, this is what the story is, and I'm not gonna complain about it.
Mhm. Mm.
I'm having fun with this.
Good.
Mm.
Yeah, and so we're authors, we're writers. We like to create, but this blurb and the elevator pitch, as it were, that's part of the marketing. That's a business aspect, and we're
Yeah.
not. It takes some creativity to come up with that, but yeah, we've gone over that line from like creator to business person. Like, hey, I'd like you to buy my book, and here it is. And
Yep.
I think that's another thing that can, I was going to say offend us. It's offensive to think this, but like it is. It's like we don't want to do that. We want to have fun with our characters. We want to,
No.
put them through the ringer and have fun with them. And now it's time to. Would it be fair to say it's almost like we're being vulnerable with our books, our stories, and go, all right, now it's time to be judged because
Yes.
you kind of are, right?
Yeah, like whenever you can like create something like a book, you're putting yourself out there, whether you realize it or not. And when you put something out there, you know how people can be, a bit critical on these things. They can, like, some people really love it and some people will really hate it. And you go into that fray knowing that some
Yeah.
people are gonna just go wish-washy about it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to detach yourself sometimes from your work and just
Mm-hmm.
be like, okay, I'm putting this out there, and some people are gonna like it and some people are not. And like, okay,
Mhm.
some people are not. I just
Yeah.
got to deal with that. But yeah, like the business aspect, I'm like, once, like the moment I published my book, that's when the like marketing side like came into play. And I'm like, oh wait, now I gotta get this into people's hands. How do I do that?
Yeah.
Like that was a whole new problem that I'm still learning how to figure out. But it's an ongoing process for all of us, and we as writers and authors have to forge on ahead until we stamp our flag in the ground and be like, I made it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm curious now. So when it comes to pitches, how do you guys feel about, so coming back, you have a very short amount of time to make an impression, and you really want that impression to be based on your book. But I have heard of people saying, like, starting off their pitch by saying, if you're a fan of X and Y books,
Mm,
you would like this because, and that's kind of how they lead into it.
okay.
And I'm kind of back and forth on that because on one hand, I'm like, that's good because then they understand exactly what genre it is or what to expect from your books. But at the same time, I lean the other way as well because I think one, you're using up valuable seconds to explain your book by
Mm,
explaining somebody else's.
mhm,
And two, then you're kind of in a way saying like, I'm like that author, which means that you're
mhm,
not really standing out on your own. So
mhm.
I'm just curious now what your guys' thoughts are on kind of which way you would lean or what you think the
Right.
pros and cons are of either.
I'm super for it.
Mhm,
I mean, I also described a high fantasy, grim dark thing as a Pokemon thing. So like maybe I'm not the best person to speak to it, but it's
mhm,
one of those things like it is to your point, you only have a limited time. So you have 30 seconds. Well, how do I explain everything that I need to about this book in 30 seconds? Well, like, it's just like using an archetype in your book. It's, this author stands as an archetype of what my work is doing. Yeah, it might be 30% different, but that gets them a good gist. So if I can say, oh, hey, it's, you know, Pokemon meets George R.R. Martin, like, that gives them a good understanding. Or I can even tweak it a little bit and go, oh, meets Joe Abercrombie. And they're like, okay, that gives them a very different picture, even though I'm not really saying much different. And so you can just use your knowledge of different authors to really give them understanding of what you are doing and what makes your work unique. So I think that's actually a very valuable use of your time personally, because you can bring that in. So whether it's, you know, oh, I have hard magic systems, so maybe I'll compare myself to Brandon Sanderson, or those kind of things.
Right. Nah, I'm in agreement. I the way my marketing pitch is is a cross between Sherlock Holmes and Mission Impossible. So most people know exactly what both of those are. It's like, you know, a mystery, deep set mystery, brilliant character inside this world that's like high action, fast paced, high stakes, and so it's very relatable. They quickly understand it. I would say I'm kind of with you too, Holly. Like, I think it was in Stephen King's book on writing where he said he did not like in the beginning being compared to other authors, because his take was like, well, if they want to read Peter Straub, then you know, oh, this guy's just like Peter Straub, and he didn't want that. He's like, well, shoot, they're just going to go read Peter Straub. Why would they read me? You know. So there's that aspect of it too, but I would have to say that I am in agreement with it, with what you were asking about. How about you, Jake?
I like how Austin gave the like image of like what to kind of look out for. Like when you said Pokemon meets George R.R. Martin, I'm like, I'm sold. I want it. I already like this, you know. So I like how you gave an image, like, and like, sure, like Bob, like you can kind of agree with Stephen King a little bit. I'm like, okay, like you're comparing him to other people, but sometimes like for people like me who have very, very simple minds, I'm like, I don't need anything crazy, dude. I'm like, I'm just looking for something good to read, you know. Then it's like, okay, like that helps give me a very good idea of what I'm looking for. And I guess it's understanding people's motivations, like what do people want, and like what are they looking for in a story? Are they looking for entertainment? Are they looking for a message involved in that? It's hard to tell sometimes. I'm still learning this process, but I do agree with what Austin said, and I like how he described it.
Yeah. And also I would say, like, one of the differences between what Stephen King said is he doesn't want to be described as like a single author. But if I say, oh, I'm like, my work is like Brandon Sanderson meets Nicholas Sparks, you go, what is this? And like, neither one of those are anything like each other.
Right.
It's like saying, oh, I'm yellow plus blue. It's like green is not like yellow or blue, but it is the combination of those two things, even though it is completely independent of those things.
Yeah. Well, how about you, Holly? What'd you think about what you're asking?
Yeah, I think that I think as long as your book is relatable to those. So what I mean is, like, a big thing in fantasy right now is the new Fourth Wing, right? Is a perfect example. Fourth Wing is about like there's like dragons and wyverns and stuff like that in it. Which is really, really great. But if your book, you know, just happens to have like a dragon in it, but it's not really a big part of your story, you wouldn't want to come out and be like, oh, it's, you know, Fourth Wing meets this. If you're only saying it's related to that book because of like this one, you know what I mean? Like, don't just don't say your book is like a popular book just because there's, you know, one's like a little tiny, it's a little bit close. Right. Otherwise you're going to be misleading that person. And, you know, that's not going to go over well either, because you don't want an agent being like, oh, I'd love to read your work. And then you get excited and then they read it and they're like, well, I loved that this dragon was in it for, you know, if you're like me, you write about it for 2 chapters and then forget to write about it for the rest of the book.
Well, yeah, and like, to your point, like the one that I'm sharing with y'all in writers group, there's technically a dragon in it and it's already been mentioned, but I don't know if y'all even know there's a dragon in it, because it's not very clear at this point. And y'all are almost 50 chapters in. So yeah, it would not be a good fair comparison for me to say something like that.
Yeah.
But I
That's
do think
smart.
you're right, it does make sense. And especially, especially if you have like a similar writing style, or something like that, it would be helpful for people to know, like, oh yeah, I do like that style, or I do like that type of book. So, you would be more inclined to pick it up. So I guess I can see it from both ways.
Yeah. Well, I think too that we'd have to think on our feet, because I know I wasn't always using this particular elevator pitch because when I would tell them, I don't even remember. I think it was much longer when I was trying to sell my book. I'm like, this lady was left for dead by Jack the Ripper. She's trying to find him, and they would just kind of like almost their eyes would glaze over, like this guy's talking too much, or is going? I don't know what the heck. Where is this going? So we kind of have to pivot every once in a while. You might have to change stuff up just based on feedback, because maybe you think this is great. I love this, and there is something to be said for your own creation, and like you believe in it. We get it, but again, we're trying to sell it. We're trying to get other people to love it too, and it just helps to just kind of watch for that feedback, I guess, right?
Speaking of watching for feedback, something else I would recommend is, and I do this for work, before I'm giving presentations and stuff, is that if you record yourself, even if it's just an audio recording or a video recording, and you record yourself giving your pitch, and it doesn't have to even be the same pitch over and over. Come up with like a couple different variations and watch yourself giving that pitch and listen to it, and just, think about it. Like, does this seem like something that I would like, or is this getting the main point of my story across, or is there a better way that I can say this? And I don't mean like record it and listen to it right away, but like record it, give it a couple days, and then go back and listen to them, and then you might find certain things that you would change, or that you think that you could improve on, and it just gives you more practice at doing it as well.
Yeah. And to your point, like earlier, you're talking about like, well, some people aren't really sure why they have an issue with this or why it's difficult. And it's because honestly, being creative on the spot, like we're writers, we have all the time in the world to perfect our words. And so why would this be the one time we do improv? Like that's not what we do. We prepare everything beforehand.
Unless
that
you're
is
a
our
pantser.
skill set. Well, I mean, even if you're a pantser, you still should be going through the editing process.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. Write first, edit later.
That's right.
Yeah, someone had actually said something along the lines of that on my post, was like, it's because we're writers, not speakers.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, touche.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not really one perfect way to sell something. Like every person is different. Everyone has different motivations and everything. So as you're trying to find that golden ticket, but I'm not sure it really exists. You have to find different ways to connect with different people because everyone's different.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah. 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 That'll be fun though. Hopefully, we'll get to see, some more of your work soon. What's your next book is, where's that at? You getting your like first draft or?
Yeah. So with my next book, I've finished writing it. So the manuscript is ready. I'm just in the process of hiring a cover designer for it so I can get the cover for it made and then get it formatted so I can get it out onto Amazon and other works. So that's happening. And then while that's been happening, I've been writing my third novel. So it's the second book in the series. And so, but yeah, my next book, the manuscript is done. I'm just trying to get a cover designer. It's just taking a little longer than I expected it to.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sourcing out cover artists right now still. Patiently.
I love that shared sigh that you just gave me, because just that one sigh explains everything. And I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Who would have thought, huh?
Yeah.
It's a journey, isn't it?
This is the worst part.
I just hired Mabley Art for my hardcover design that I'm going to be trying to push a Kickstarter for pretty soon. And they're fantastic. They give you like unlimited revisions. Very, very well priced. If I can just say, like around 350, that was
Okay.
super low for what they do, for what they produce.
Yeah, this
Um,
stuff's great.
And it's MIBL Art, Meebly Art.
Oh yeah,
they're
that's
yeah, this is the same one.
when Brittany used.
Brittany used, right? That's
Mhm.
that's why I went to them, because
Mhm.
she had a fantastic book cover. But anyway, that's just an aside.
I reached out to someone and I knew it came as a recommendation from someone else that I knew,
Okay.
and he's done a couple very popular books, and so
Oh,
I
okay.
knew it was going to be outrageous, but this person was like, just reach out and ask.
Yeah.
And I did, and it was like $2,000.
That's all?
I just fell
See,
over.
it's things like that that make me want to just go to Fiverr and hire
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
20 artists and go,
20
do
artists.
what you want, and I will pick the best of y'all and we'll move forward.
Yeah.
It sounds
So
like you're
you can-
describing 99 Designs, Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
It-
another one.
I mean, he's worth every penny. Like I
I'll bet.
love his work, and
Okay.
he does such a good job, and he's
Yeah.
but I was like, oof, maybe
That's
for
a
the
lot of
trilogy,
money.
for the trilogy, maybe, but just for the standalone
Just
that I
for
just
one.
decided to come up with in November
Just
is really
do
not.
special editions once you're
Yeah.
super popular.
There you
New
go.
covers.
Well, and that's the thing is like I love those like special editions that have the sprayed edges.
Oh, I
And,
know.
like I would rather,
Yeah.
not cheap out on a cover, but spend less money on a cover and then order more books and get some special editions done instead.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah,
very,
that's my
very
thing.
nice.
Is like my dream is to have just the like cloth cover with the embossed symbol, because I invented an entire language for my books, and I just like want to have the name of the book in that language on each book embossed, and like each world of the 9 different worlds is represented by a different color. So just like each world is just like a different shade of that color with
Wow.
the symbol embossed. Nice and simple, but God, is that expensive to do?
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Sounds so cool, though.
Yeah.
Austin's elevator pitches. If you want to learn a new language,
If you think Tolkien did a good job with the world building and you love languages, have I got a language for you? So,
I will
don't worry about the
say-
story. It's all about the language.
I'm such a bad person, but to this day, I don't think I've read Lord of the Rings about 4 or 5 times, and I have not. I almost always skip over poems or songs. I'm
mean-
so sorry.
It's okay. My favorite book is the Silmarillion that Tolkien wrote, and so like I'm that kind of a nerd. Like I literally have a tattoo in the language that I made up. So
Oh, wow.
I'm that guy.
That's dedication.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but I can hide it because it's in white ink. You can't even see it right there. So
What the
Man,
heck?
one of my coworkers has one in white ink, and I was like, I wanted to get the Valkyrie symbols on my hands, but just broken up across like my fingers and the top of my hand. And my stepmom's like, you cannot do that with your profession. Like you cannot do that. And I was like, my coworker has it in white ink, so yes, I can.
Yeah, you can wear gloves.
I was a
Just wear
teacher.
gloves.
Yeah, I was a teacher, so we weren't allowed to have tattoos, and so I got it done in white ink. And it was like 6 months into the school year before anybody noticed, and they were like, "Well, you've already been here, so."
Yeah, once you're tenured, you're good to go, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was a tangent. Sorry about that.
I always love talking about tattoos because I don't have any, and I always find it interesting talking to people about them because I'm like, is there symbolism to this, or did you get it because it looked cool?
Yeah.
Oh,
If
see,
there's symbolism, then I'm like, tell me more.
Yeah.
I spent like 6 years planning mine, and then completely threw out all of my designs and got it on the spur of a moment. And
6
so-
years?
Yeah, and then I did something completely different that I came up with like 2 hours before. So,
Gosh.
but it's a Bible quote done in the language of my books, so
Oh, nice.
or in one of the languages. So
That's okay.
Yeah.
Got paper quotes and all right.
Beautiful.
From elevator pitches to white ink tattoos. This is what
I
yeah,
know, right?
that's what we're all
par for the
about.
course for us.
Yeah, that's what we're all about. I hope
And
everyone.
I think tangents like this bring us to our don'ts section.
I was going to say we came full circle because I'm pretty sure that in like our first or second episode, we like made some comment about how writing a book is like getting a tattoo, and I'm pretty sure Austin, you said it.
Oh, really?
Wow.
So
That's
I'm
funny.
pretty sure we've now come full circle.
Yeah,
Well, there you go.
here we are. Episode number 28 about tattoos and elevator pitches. So,
Yeah, there
That's
you go.
right.
We are the Ouroboros,
Yeah.
swallowing our own tail.
so don't do this as far as elevator pitches go.
So I'm going to jump in and say,
Oh,
don't
man, he's
go off
good.
on wild tangents.
Oh, stop it.
Way to
God.
point out the obvious, Austin.
Yeah. Wow. That's brilliant.
I'm just saying, so like, in all honesty, it is really easy for us to get stuck in rabbit trails of what we think is fascinating because we know everything about our stories and about our worlds.
That's true.
And like, we may know things about our worlds that don't even come up in our books. And we'll get lost in that stuff. Because, like, you know, you give us an hour to talk, we'll talk about our books for an hour. But you
Yeah.
got 60 seconds instead of 60 minutes. So
Yeah.
you can't spend your time talking about all these wonderful things that you've done
Yeah.
as far as world building. You just got to get to the nitty gritty. What is the thing that sets you apart, or what, like, you know, what makes you, your book, and that's it. You can't get into all the weeds of everything.
Yep. Okay. Who's next? Anyone? Okay, me,
I
I
mean,
guess. Okay,
I-
go ahead, Jake. You got it.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
I mean, like, don't keep it too vague. You know, like I remember
Yeah,
how like
I like
pointing this
that.
out a little earlier. Is like, oh, like it's a fantasy story. What's it about? You're like, it's got magic and people with special abilities. He's like,
Mhm.
okay, come on, man, you got to give me a little something more. So like,
Yeah.
like don't overcomplicate it, but don't keep it too vague. I know that's cliche to say, but you gotta like
Yeah.
find the right like proportion of like how much to give them, and try not to give them any spoilers, because if you do, that'll just ruin everything.
Mm.
So you
I-
get
I'm going to disagree on the spoilers. I love spoilers. But that's a whole other thing.
okay.
Maybe you can ask him. You can, hey, do you like spoilers? Yes or no? And then, yeah, go.
I mean, if it gets him intrigued like that, then maybe give him that.
Side note, there is a really popular book that was recently released by this famous fantasy author. And it was the third book in her third series that was released. And on her Instagram, people like, there had been hints about like a multiverse kind of situation going on. And there was nothing in the first or the second book. But then the third one there was. And she just like, before the book was even released, was like releasing quotes about the story. And one of the quotes was like clearly talking about characters that were from one of the completely different series. And it just like completely broke the internet because people were just devastated. They're like, I haven't even started reading this series
wow.
yet. And now I know. And you just like, not even a
Wow.
careful spoiler warning, you know,
Wow.
just like, bam, here it is.
Wow.
Well, okay. So like,
They did
that's
not
the
love
thing. Is that
spoilers.
that's the thing is I think a lot of people say they don't like spoilers, but at the same time, I think a lot of people do without admitting it. Like for me, I didn't want to watch Critical Role, and so Critical Role spoilers for everybody. Like season 2, didn't really care about watching it until I found out some big truth about Sam Riegel's character, and I was like, well, now I have to watch this whole show just so that I can get to this point that was already spoiled because I want to see how that plays out. Like I think the how of things is more interesting. Like, yeah, sure, Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. Like, cool, but how? Like. That is the interesting bit. What happens isn't interesting. How it happens is.
So this is probably going to get me removed from a lot of people's arc lists for what I'm about to say. Or maybe it'll get me added to more. I don't know. But I always have to read every book twice because the first time I read through a book, I get too excited wanting to know what happens in the end. And I start to I skim things to get to the end.
Okay.
Or to get to characters that I like more. And then the second time, as soon as I'm done reading, I'm like happy. I know what happens in the end. I'm like, okay, now how did we get here? And then I go back to the beginning and I read like, thoroughly through it. But I just get so excited and I'm like, I just want to know what happens. So then I have to read
Holly,
everything twice.
That's perfect.
That makes me so happy. I like reading the last chapter first.
Oh,
Yeah.
like
Who
people
are
have
these
done.
people, Jake?
Oh my gosh. Like, well, it's like
I'm sorry.
Okay.
If the author's not going to give me an in media res start, I'm going to give it to myself.
well, it's like it's not even that. It's just like because like in my book, I like at the very end of it, I give a whole explanation
Whoa,
of
wait
why
a
I
second.
wrote.
Is this a spoiler? Goodness gracious.
No. Like this
Okay,
isn't a
okay.
spoiler. Like
Okay.
at the end of my book, I give an explanation of like why I wrote the book and
Oh,
how
I
I
see. Okay,
got into it.
Okay.
But then like and it like reveals a lot of details about me, and then like. But the thing is, like, some people have like come up to me. They're like, "Oh yeah, I just went to the end of the book and read that, and then I started reading the book." And I'm
Oh,
like,
okay.
that like
And you're like,
spoils a
who is
lot
this
of.
wild character that would do this?
You're like that like spoils a lot of things, okay? But like you shouldn't have done that. But fine.
Oh, well.
Apparently, there's a whole group that you didn't realize that love spoilers.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, just
Yeah.
jump to the end, man. I'm like, no, don't.
Don't do that.
Just
Stop
read it.
Yeah. All right. I love this tangent stuff.
Okay, sorry.
No.
more
Go
tangents from
ahead.
me.
No,
No.
you don't need to apologize, Holly. Austin needs to apologize.
You know what? I'm not sorry.
I'm not. Yeah.
I know you're not. That's why I
He
want to
never
put
does.
spot.
Yeah. No, he has nothing to apologize for.
Uh,
I would say don't forget that you are, at the end of the day, I'm sorry to say, as an author, you are going to be a business person. Even if you
Yep.
do get picked up by Simon Schuster or Penguin, or I think there's 3 now? There used to be 5. Now there's like 3 or 4. But
It depends on your genre. So
depends on your genre, but you're still gonna be selling books. You're still have you're still gonna have a website. You're still gonna have a social media. People are, because you're gonna get new readers every single day. There's new people looking for new material, and they're gonna ask you, "What's your book about? What's your book about? What's your book about?" And so you that's the business side of it, and that's just how it is. But the caveat being, you can still be very creative about it and make it fun and enjoyable to where, yeah, this is why I wrote it, man, because it's going to be a kicked ass, man. Like, I'm writing Barbarian Barista, and it's going to be this kick ass orc chieftain, soul bonded to this barista who just wants to make lattes, but now they got to go kill some demons and smash some heads. You can have fun with it, right?
mm-hmm.
So, but just don't forget that. All right. Who's next? Jake.
I would read that.
Thank you, Holly. I know you would. You'd read the end, apparently. You'd skip through the whole thing.
Well, unfortunately, you're forcing me to read it slowly.
Yeah, I know that's the hardest thing, right?
Not
Yeah.
by choice.
Yeah. I got to get on that. All right.
You do. I was actually telling my friend all about your book this weekend.
Oh, that's nice
So
of you.
I was
Thank
like,
you.
this Barbarian Barista is so fun. Actually, both of you guys was talking about both of your books
Thank
because
you.
they're
That's
completely
nice.
different. And I was
And
like,
yours.
totally nerding out.
Wait, ours are completely different. I felt like ours were basically
Yeah, basically the same.
super the same.
Yeah, they're virtually twins.
Okay. I procrastinated long enough. My don't.
Okay.
I will say, don't be afraid to practice your pitch on other people. Even whether it's people that are close to you, or even if you have, members of your street team for marketing or your ARC readers, if they're people that you feel comfortable reaching out to. Usually, like, people in the book community are very kind and they're very generous, and they are totally there to help you out. So if you have talked to people and they've read your book, and you can say, hey, like, do you got 10 minutes? And I would just love to just throw a couple pitches by you, and they might again be able to look at it and be like, well, I felt like, the story was kind of more along these lines, or these are things that stood out for me in the story. And then from there, you can kind of better figure out what your pitch is going to be, because what you think the story is really about, like Austin said, a lot of things that are maybe never made it into the book. And so what you think the whole picture of the story is, might not be what everyone else is seeing. So asking for outside help as well when you're working on that pitch is totally
Smart.
okay.
Yep, absolutely smart.
No, I think that's a great point, because it comes down to one of those things that we used to talk about a lot when I was an English teacher, is who gets to define what a book is and what it's about, and it's the readers. So if you do have ARC readers and those kind of things, that's a great resource to go. So like, what is this book to you? And then you can kind of synthesize that into what your pitch is.
Nice. All right. Well, Jake gave his, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. I'm old, so.
It's old. You're old and it's late.
And it's late. It's past my bedtime. I haven't had my sippy cup of meds yet. So anyway, Where, Jake? Where can we find you? Your book is on your book is Broken to Beautiful. That's on Amazon and any other platforms. Is that book available?
Yeah,
or-
so you can find me on Instagram at author Jake Lynch or on my website, authorjakelynch.com. And I'm on TikTok as well. So those are the main areas. Author Jake Lynch, just put that in the search bar, you'll find me. So
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you for being with us. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time. You guys are a lot of fun,
We are definitely a lot of fun.
especially Austin.
That's something
We're
we
chaotic
would never. Yeah, we're chaotic fun. We have lots of fun. We will never ever be boring. Absolutely not. We're just
Never.
we're too fun for that.
Well, it was a joy to have you, Jake. So
Yes,
Oh.
thank you so much.
Thanks so
Yeah.
much for having me. It's been great talking to you guys.
Yeah, but we would love to have you on again when you launch your next book. in
For
this
sure.
series.
I'd love to be back.
That'd be fun. We could talk about that book. Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. So don't forget to write and subscribe to our channels at the links below so you don't miss any of the Writers Room content. We always love to hear from our listeners. So if you have a question or topic you want us to dive into, please get in touch. Until then, we will see you later. Bye.
Hi.
bye, y'all.